excited. This is a highly anticipated webinar. People have been asking to be able to talk to Chris and pick his brain a little bit about microblading. So I'm really excited to have you here, Chris. Welcome to Live in the Hive. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, guys, thanks for coming on. Julie, I can't see you anymore.
You won't see me when you're talking unless you change your screen view.
Oh, okay.
Just so you know.
No problem.
And just so everyone knows, let me give you one more housekeeping rule, that at the bottom of your screen, I know some people that are familiar with Zoom know this already, but there's a chat button. I have muted everyone on the call, so if you have any questions as we go through, go ahead and enter them into the chat, and I'll ask Chris at the end of his short presentation. So please, we welcome all of your questions.
Yes, we want lots of questions, you guys, because I'm gonna base most of this on Q&A as opposed to me just sitting here and like rambling for a half hour, because that's boring. Nobody wants boring. So I'm gonna get started. So I've been doing microblading for quite a few years now, and I actually did it before anybody really knew what it was. And I kind of taught myself in a way because there was no trainings available. And now it seems like microblading is all over the place. And I'm sure, you know, you guys are all here because you've either heard of it or you want to know more about it, or both. And it's just really amazed me how, especially in the past year, microblading has really like exploded. And so Julie and I wanted to really start working on getting people more educated about it and getting trainings going where people can really learn the proper way to do this. Because when you really think about it, what microblading is, you know, taking some needles that are all in a row, and for lack of better words, you're cutting into someone's, you know, eyebrows. So it, you know, potentially is, you know, can cause some major issues. So that's why we wanted to have this and talk a little bit about microblading and the safety issues and how you can go about getting registered if you want to become someone who microblades, or if you're interested in, you know, wanting to get it done but you don't know where to go. That's another question, you know, that we can answer here as well. So there's just a couple of things that I want to talk about before Julie starts asking questions. And a lot of people don't realize that to get certified, and I'm using quotes on that for a reason, in microblading, and to get a license in microblading is incredibly easy. And people think, oh, well, since you have a license for it and a certificate, that must mean you have done years of work, and that's absolutely not true. The reality is that in most states, all you need to do is get a tattoo license, which means you're sending an application into the city, you're sending them a check, and you're sending them a bloodborne pathogen test, which you can take online, takes 30 minutes and $25, and you are licensed to do tattoos, which means you're also licensed to do microblading. So it literally takes nothing to be able to microblade, which is why so many people are doing it now. And they're then going online and going onto YouTube and looking at tutorials there and saying, hey, I can make a few $100s per person. I'm gonna start doing this. So that's why we have such a proliferation of people who don't know what they're doing, which we want to avoid. So that's why we're doing this webinar. So it's really scary how you really don't need to have any skills. You don't need to have any training, literally no training, and you can get a tattoo license to do microblading. So a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't understand that. And from someone like me who's been doing this for 5 years and has been in the spa and beauty industry for 20, it's kind of scary, you know, and it takes away from me as a practitioner and me as a trainer and other people who are out there legitimately doing this work and doing a good job, because now we have so many people saying that they, you know, are certified, whether it's online, you know, from a 2-day training. It's really scary. So that's my main thing that I wanted to talk about with you guys. If you are going to go get certified, and I keep doing that because it's really anybody can certify you. If you're going to do that, really check into who you're going to, why you're going to them, what experience they have, look at their pictures, make sure they have pictures that are actually theirs, because a lot of people put fake pictures up. There's a lot going on out there, so don't trust people is the bottom line of what I'm getting at here. And I'll touch on some other things, you know, once, you know, Julie starts asking questions, but I really want to get into the questions now because I know that's important for people. So that's my spiel, and I'm going to take it over to you, Julie, and you can ask questions.
Well, definitely, if anybody has any questions, please enter them into the group chat. And if you're not familiar with Zoom, it's at the bottom of your screen. You'll see a chat button. And I'll wait for any questions that you may have that are specific to your situation. But a lot of questions that come up in spas that I visit, one specific one is, how can I earn money? So how much money can I earn doing microblading? Is it profitable and lucrative for me as a single esthetician, or can it be profitable for me as a spa owner as well, with multiple estheticians?
I mean, that's kind of a loaded question. So, of course, it's profitable. I mean, you know, being an esthetician can be profitable. Doing eyelash extensions can be profitable. But this is not something that you just do. You go get a 2-day certificate and you start making $700 a person. And I think a lot of people that come and do trainings with me, they think, oh, I'm just going to do this certificate and then I can start working. This is a really difficult thing to do. Not only is it, you know, dangerous if you're don't know what you're doing, but it's really difficult, and it takes a lot of skill and it takes a lot of practice. So I always tell my students that you really need to practice at least a month off of skin before you are even working on people. And then you should work another few weeks, probably a month, like on 5 more people before you start collecting money. So after you do your actual training, it's going to take you a good couple of months of practice before you're even comfortable doing this. And if you do it before that, then you're doing a disservice to people, because you're not going to do a good job, because it's very difficult to learn this, and it's very difficult to train, and it's aggravating and frustrating, and you need to be comfortable with it. So yes, you can make money off of it, but it's not instant money. It's going to take a while. And I always tell people, it's kind of like if you're an esthetician. When you first got your license, you really didn't know what you were doing. So you needed to practice. You needed to work on people. You needed to do peels on people before you were really comfortable with it. So, you know, like I charge right now to do microblading anywhere between $700 and $1,000. You're not going to go out the door, you know, making that much money. It'll take you years to do that. But you can usually, after a couple months, start at about $250 per person, and go from there. I know someone who was really good. She was really good from the beginning, and 2 months later, she started doing $500 per session. But she already had existing clientele that trusted her. So, you know, it really depends. You can make anywhere, you know, when you're starting out, from $250 a person to $500. I would not ask for more than that. And as far as being a salon owner, you have to look at, you know, the numbers. I mean, is it going to be worth it for you? Probably it is, because you're offering something that a lot of salons and spas are not offering yet. So you're kind of ahead of the curve. So you're going to be one of these trendsetters that have a microblading artist you know, on staff, which is a really good thing. But you do, as a spa or salon owner, have to know, technically in most states, you have to have a tattoo establishment license, which means the health department has to come in and approve you as a tattoo parlor, believe it or not, in order to legally, you know, be having someone come in and do microblading in your location. That was a really long answer.
Thank you for the answer.
There's a lot to it, though. Yeah.
My other question would be if, you know, I'm interested in doing microblading.
Right.
And what are my next steps? So I'm on this webinar and I'm not currently doing it.
Right.
And I want to get some real tangible information on my next steps on how I should evaluate if microblading is right for me or for my salon or spa or med spa or whatever the location may be that's on the call.
Right.
What are some next steps that I should take?
It's like with anything, you got to do research. You know, you just got to start Googling, you know, microblading training in my area or microblading training in, you know, New York or wherever you live, and see what pops up. And honestly, I know that I don't, because I recently started doing Google AdWords, which Julie and I were just talking about, which is the bane of my existence right now. I'm not real high on the Google list. So you really have to do your research. And I know that when people come to me, they come to me because I offer one-on-one private trainings, which I think is really important, because one thing I would recommend is if you're looking for a training, make sure that it's not too big, because everybody with this needs personal attention, and you need a lot of personal attention with the microblade training. And if you don't get that personalized attention, you're going to get lost, and you're not going to know what you're doing after the 2 days or the 3 days. So I would say look for someone who gives one-on-ones and ask them for references, and call some of their previous students, check their websites out, check their Facebook page out, see what their reviews are on there, and you'll get a good idea. And I think you'll know, you know, once you see it, which one is right for you, because there are different types of trainings available.
Great, thank you. Also, another question that came in is about when you're trying to find someone to do microblading, or the customer is trying to find someone to do microblading. Can you tell us about some few gone wrong situations?
There's a lot of them.
And you know, how can we avoid that? I mean, of course, research, but I know that, you know, there's been certain instances that you've had to, you know, do corrections and things like that. You know, tell me, this is serious business.
It is.
And, you know, what are some of the things that you've seen go wrong?
I would not go on Groupon and get microblading off of Groupon, because the main reason people go on Groupon is because they don't have a lot of clientele, and they need the money, and or they need the client, you know, people to come in to work on. That's actually when I first started, I went on Groupon because I didn't have a lot of experience, and so I just went on Groupon. So I would definitely not do it on Groupon. Ask around, ask friends. Sorry, but it's true. Ask friends, you know, look and see. You've got to know somebody that's had it done, you know, so ask them if, you know, if they have anyone. Of course, if you go online, it's a little more risky. Even if you're going on Instagram, you know, people use fake pictures all the time. And actually, I hate to say this, but one of my old students, I went on her website and she has all these fake pictures on. And I know she didn't do them because she's only been doing microblading for a month, you know? So you just have to be really careful. People are dishonest about it. Ask them how long they've been doing it. If they've been doing it under a year, I would not pay them a dime, you know? So don't get cheap on this. This is something you do not, it's like Julie, like you were saying, it's something you don't want to mess around with. You know, I charge $700, yeah, but I guarantee you're going to get a good set of eyebrows. And I've seen so many people who have come to me and paid another $700 to have the $300 job that they, you know, are crying about every day because someone messed them up. So it's not worth saving a couple $100. So, you know, I would just go, this really is a case of you get what you pay for. And usually if someone's charging more money, they're going to be better at it. Not always.
And so kind of leading to someone that's going to be better at it. I mean, you've trained a lot of people, and we have a big audience on the call and an even bigger audience, you know, out in social media.
Right.
How do I know? So how do I know if I'm going to be good at it? Does it take any sort of skill, or pretty much anyone can do it? Question number one. And question number two, if I'm a spa or salon or med spa and I want to do a training for my team and I want to have my 5 estheticians learn how to do microblading, is that a mistake? You know, or should I, how would I pick my staff that I feel would do it well? Or can anyone do it?
Well, I mean, technically anyone can do it. Like I said, you can, you know, pay the money to get a tattoo license and, you know, technically you can do it. But as far as being good at it and enjoying it, a lot of people, once they take a training from me, they realize, ugh, I don't really like this. You know, I did eyelash extension training, and after a month, you know, a month later, I realized I hate this. Like so I haven't done eyelash extensions since. I think the same thing applies to doing this. You have to be very detail oriented. There are a lot of steps to this. It is, I know I've said this, it's very difficult. And you definitely have to have an artistic eye. If you don't, in some level, I'm not an artist by any stretch of the means, but I will tell you that I am, I'm artistic, you know, I'm an actor and, you know, all of that stuff. So I have art in me. If you're not, then you might want to double check it. You know, you might want to think about it. And if you're not detail oriented, and if you have such ADD that you can't focus on a set of eyebrows for an hour and a half, that might be a problem as well. And also if you're not a good learner, there's a huge learning curve with this. And, you know, when I started, I had 20 years experience as a makeup artist, and I went to zero. You know, I knew nothing about this, so I had to learn from the ground up. So if someone's not a good learner, or not willing to, or really driven, which is what I was driven to do this. I knew I was going to do it, so I did it, even though it was really hard. So those, I would say, are the criteria. You have to be artistic. You have to have patience. You have to have determination. This isn't, you know, just like, you know, doing a facial. It's not quick and easy. So if someone did want to do, you know, like 5 estheticians in one location, which I have done trainings like that before, it's a little difficult because everybody's different. You know, someone is really gung-ho and absolutely wants to do it. And then other people, you know, they're okay, but, you know, you can tell they're not going to be doing it in a year from now. So you just have to ask them, do you really want to do this? Are you willing to put the time and the energy and the practice in afterwards? And if they're not sure, then it's probably not for them.
Great. I had another question, but then another question just came through on the chat.
Okay.
So I'll ask the question from the chat right now. So we currently do microblading.
Okay.
And a challenge we have is that clients could get a tattooed brow for far less than we charge for microblading.
Right.
What's the best way to describe the difference between tattooed brows and microblading to a guest?
The difference between a tattoo brow and microblading, there's a huge difference. Microblading is done with a hand tool, or it should be done with a hand tool. If you're using a machine, that's not microblading. So microblading is semi-permanent. Here's the quickest and easiest answer. Microblading is semi-permanent. It will go away in about 2 years, and regular tattoos are 100% permanent unless you get them removed with a laser. And so what you get is what you're going to have. So it's a lot more, it lasts a lot longer. They use a different ink for regular tattoos, which is why it stays so much longer. We use an organic-based ink, which is a lot more natural looking. People don't have allergic reactions when using the ink from microblading, as opposed to regular tattoos as well. But the biggest and most important answer is regular tattoos. If they make a mistake, you can't erase it. And you're gonna have to go and get laser tattoo removal, which is very painful and very expensive as well. And it just doesn't look as good. It looks like you have a Sharpie on your eyebrows, because with regular tattoos, they use, they have primary colors for regular tattoos. So they don't have the beautiful browns and mauves and, you know, all the variety of colors that we have. They have black, red, green, blue. And so you're going to have, you know, black, blue eyebrows as opposed to a beautiful, you know, sable brown with hair strokes on it. So it's a huge difference. And most tattoo artists have no idea how to do the eyebrows anyway. They just kind of do it in about 10 minutes. They just take the machine and go zzz, zzz, and then that's it. And that's not true. Microblading, if a good practitioner, takes about 2 hours, because we fully map out and measure everything and draw the eyebrows on first, and then we do the procedure. So it takes about 2 hours.
So there's much more of a science to it.
I mean, yeah.
There's a lot more time put into it.
Absolutely.
You're not
if
committed
done properly.
to a style that may be gone in 3 to 5 years, which we've all seen how eyebrow styles change.
Right, correct.
So, you know, I'm walking around with 50s style brows right now.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing too. And we're in the day and age of people getting Botox and getting fillers. And what happens in, you know, 3 years when the Botox wears off, you decide, oh, I don't want to do Botox anymore. And your brows start lowering down and you have that permanent tattoo that's now like going down too. So that's not cute. That's not the look we want. So at least this is a lot less committal, so you can do it. And I know we say, oh, in 2 to 3 years, the microblading disappears. It's really about at a year. It starts fading dramatically at about a year. And then by 2 years, you can't see it at all. So it does not last 2 years. It lasts about a year. And then every year from there, you have to get it touched up.
And so I'm one of those people that, you know, I got talked into the tattooed brows. And so now what do I do? Can you microblade over tattooed brows?
Can you microblade?
Can you as an artist, you know, help fix?
Yeah. Can you microblade over tattooed brows? Yes, you can. You need to be experienced with that though. You know, so again, if you have an existing tattoo, if it's a really dark one, no, you can't. Absolutely not. You can reshape it, but you can't change, you know, like if it's really dark here from an existing tattoo, nothing can be done about that. You can change the shape of it though. So
can you soften it with hair strokes?
Yeah, and that's what you're doing, is because you're going to be adding hair strokes up on the top. Usually, because usually when they do like a hardcore, like old school tattoo, it's just kind of like that. Whereas it's a lot more modern when you do a microblading, you know, when we do the hair strokes. So you can, but the person has to have experience with that. And unfortunately, people will lie and say they do have experience, but don't, and then make it worse. So you really have to be careful and do your research. Call the people, talk to the person who's going to be working on you, and ask a lot of questions. Go in for a consultation, see what the location looks like, if it looks dirty, and you know, if they're doing 20 other things there, I wouldn't trust them. I would trust someone who specializes in eyebrows and microblading and doesn't do 20 other things.
And another question that came through the chat is, are there different insurance requirements when you add microblading to your menu?
Yes. As a salon, you do have to add it on. And like I said, if you're, you know, to be totally legit, you have to be sign up as a tattoo establishment and have the Board of Health come in. As far as insurance, I was just talking to my insurance person because I wanted to find out about teaching, because I do a lot of teaching. And when I teach, if I go into someone's salon, you don't have to have any extra insurance. But yes, you have to just call your place up and say, I also want to add microblading onto the list of services. And then it's going to be more. I have no idea how much more for a salon at all. But I would also have the person doing it, have them get insurance as well. And that's kind of having them get skin in the game, you know? So if someone is paying for their own insurance, you're paying for yours, you know, they're less likely to stop doing microblading.
Okay, so the bottom line is that you need to contact your insurance provider and let them know that you've added microblading to your service menu.
Yes, because otherwise it could be a huge disaster.
Right, exactly.
And I've heard of that happening. Yeah, none of us want that. And I've heard of it happening. It's not like just hearsay, like it really does happen where people get in trouble because they, you know, didn't have the proper insurance for this.
Mm-hmm. And then another question that just came through on our chat is, we currently offer microblading. Should we require all microblade, let's see, let me consult for all micro clients? So okay, so I think I'm understanding this as, should we require a consultation for all microblading clients? Right now, we just require it for people who have gotten microbladed previously or tattooed brows. Well, but do you recommend us doing a consult prior?
I do. Most of my consultations are done through text messages and through emails. I just have them send a picture, so I can, and a clear picture, you know, with light, you know, and with an actual picture of the eyebrows and not the forehead. And I just have them send a picture, and I, you know, ask them, what do you want? What are you looking for? And they tell me, they send me the picture. I tell them, okay, this looks like, because the price varies when you're getting microblading. For me, like I said, I go between $700 and $1,000. $700 is someone who doesn't need too much work, that has hair already. And then the $1,000 is for someone that has absolutely no hair, because that takes an extra hour or so. Okay, so no, I mean, to me, like having someone come in to do a full consultation, it's I hate to say this, but it's kind of a waste of time. And you know, time is money for all of us. If the person feels that they need to, sure. But almost always, they're fine with sending a picture, and I give them a quote then.
So how do you prevent, you know, dissatisfaction? So if people are, you know, their expectation is one thing,
Right.
How do you clearly manage their expectation to make sure that, you know, you're achieving?
Well, sorry to cut you off. That's a really long, like when I do my trainings, that takes me about 2 hours to go through all of that, because it's all about managing clients' expectations. And I find that most people, when they come in to get their microblading done, they, number one, aren't really sure what microblading is. They don't know, you know, the first question is it going to hurt? Which, it's a little uncomfortable. It doesn't hurt. It's a little uncomfortable. But, and
I heard it hurt.
It depends on the practitioner and the products that they use. So, so yeah, it's when they first come in, they don't really know what to expect. They're nervous. They have anxiety. Is it going to hurt? And are you going to screw my eyebrows up? So all of that is coming in to play, and it's all about you as a, you know, practitioner or as a salon owner, to make them feel better about this and tell them, listen, I got it done, or, you know, she got it done over there, and here's what the process is like. I have a 5-page sheet that I give people when I'm doing my microblading, which is before, during, and after, what to expect. What are your brows going to look like? I also give them my phone number, and I tell them, you know, everybody has a freak out moment usually about 4 days after they get their microblading, where they look in the mirror and go, oh my God. And so I try and prevent that, you know, by giving them this sheet of 4 days into it, you're going to kind of freak out a little bit, you know. So, but I do give them my phone number, and I tell them, just send me a picture and I'll tell you it's normal, which it always is. So it's just like you said, it's about managing expectations and letting people know what to expect, what's going to happen, how is microblading going to work, step by step by step by step. And I've had so many people that came in and said, oh yeah, my friend did it, and they just kind of like threw her down and did it and left, and like that was it, you know. And that's not it. It's all about customer service and making them comfortable with the procedure, because it can be scary.
Great. And I'm trying to keep up with the questions coming through on the chat. So definitely keep anything you want to ask Christopher. Now is the time to do it. But we will be having a follow-up webinar in the next week to 2 weeks. So stay tuned for that. And there'll be some information about how we'll get, you know, deeper into the business of microblading.
So can I ask a question? Are most of the people that are on, are they practitioners? Are they spa owners? Do they want to get their brows done? Like is it a combination?
I have no idea.
Okay.
except the people that are asking questions that seem to be salon owners, but that's okay. A few people on our group. So, you know, if anyone wants to let us know.
I'm going to go back to the question too. One thing, if you're not really sure, if you have someone at your place that's doing microblading and you don't think they're good, or you're not sure, you can always get a refresher training. So, you know, like I offer for a 1 day, I come in and I essentially give them a 3-day training in 1 day, because they've already been trained the basics, so I don't need to go through all of that. But I show them, okay, here's how you do it. Here's how you manage the expectations. Here's how you go from A to B to C. Here's the colors that you use. You know, I do it all a lot quicker. And I find that to be a lot, you know, very helpful for a lot of people. So you're spending, you know, $1,000 to refresh yourself, or maybe relearn because you weren't taught real well, because that happens a lot too, unfortunately.
Great. Yeah, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
And then, let's see, have you ever done microblading on the lash line?
Yes.
And is that part of a traditional training, or is that done separately?
So, you don't microblade on the lash line. So I'm just going to go over something that's really, it's like my pet peeve about microblading, which I don't even like that term, because I feel that it doesn't explain what we're doing here. Microblading if you're talking about microblading, all it is taking an instrument that looks almost just like this, has no electricity to it, it's a little hand tool, and you're doing little hair strokes. That's microblading. That's the only thing that microblading is. So you technically cannot microblade the eyeliner. So if you're gonna do eyeliner, that's something called a powder fill. It's with an instrument called soft tap. So it's two totally different things. And not to bite your head off, whoever asked that, but a lot of people get confused. They think that microblading and micropigmentation and coloring the skin, and it's all the same thing, and it's absolutely not. So that's when I do my trainings, I teach people, okay, microblading is hair strokes, and then we have all these other things that you can do as well, like liner. So usually with liner, I use a machine, because I also work with a machine as well as hand tools. And I just this past weekend, you can go on my Instagram page and see it. I trained one of my students. She did microblading before she came back to learn with a machine how to do eyeliner. So, you know, I offer something like that, but I wouldn't do it along, you know, with the first class. The first class is strictly microblading. That's it. Hair strokes and the eyebrows.
Got it. And then I have one more question here. What is the
I could answer them all day.
I know you can. What would you say the average amount is to send a technician to school to learn microblading for a good training?
Cost. Okay.
So not saying, you know, on
not a janky
on YouTube training, right? Not a janky training, but a good training. What's an average cost?
Well, you know, and it's funny because when it comes to classes, it's not necessarily, you don't necessarily need to pay $5,000, and it doesn't mean you're going to get a good training. And usually you're going to be in a class of 25 people, which that's the last thing that I wanted. When I got trained one-on-one, and I loved it because she spent 3 days just with me. So generally what people are charging is for I would say for a 2-day class, which I don't recommend, by the way, is about like anywhere from $1,900 to $2,400. For my training, I charge $2,450, and that's for a private one-on-one training. And then if you have a 3-day class, there's some people do a 5-day class. It's usually about $1,000 a day. If you average it all out, that's how much a training will cost, is about $1,000 a day. So if you're doing 2 days, it'll be around $2,000, you know, $2,400. If you do 3 days, it'll be $3,000. 5 days is $5,000 generally. And again, I would check around, you know, and I would, you know, ask them for referrals, especially, you know, you're going to be there for 3 days. You know, you don't want to learn or not learn, you know, so with, you know, paying that much money. So.
Right. Just a quick question, but, you know, have you encountered many situations that you've had to retrain people?
Not from my trainings, but
no, not from your training.
I've had to retrain people. Absolutely. I think Julie, I was just telling you about this down in Miami. A friend of mine, she, you know, got trained down there for, I think it was a 2-day training. And she said, Chris, I haven't done anything because I'm so uncomfortable and I don't know what I'm doing that I haven't done anything. So I went down and I gave her a day training, and she's now doing it, you know. So absolutely, I've had to retrain people.
Okay.
Just because someone's giving a training on microblading doesn't mean they're good. So again,
right, exactly. Exactly.
You know?
And what I mean, I've recommended, you know, several people to take your training. And what I like about it really is, I mean, obviously, you know, your attention to detail, but that you don't just, you know, leave them and say, okay, you're done now, you know, go out into the world and good luck to you. you know, you kind of handhold them and give them the opportunity to follow up with you if they have questions. And I think that's really great, I would say.
Right. And I think most places don't offer that, you know, extended training. I call it, it's a more of a mentorship. So what I do is I do mentorship microblading trainings, which means just what you said. I actually extend it out for 6 months. So you have a 3-day training, and then I have people sending me pictures and sending me, you know, when they do some drawings, and I think I even have one somewhere. You know, and I critique it for them, and I, you know, tell them how to improve and all of that. So, and I do that for 6 months after the training, because it's very overwhelming if you just take a 3-day training and then you're like just kicked out. It's kind of like, well, what do I do now? You know, I just had someone ask me, what do I do about marketing, you know, for my microblading, because, you know, I started doing really well. And, you know, she said, then all of a sudden it seemed to peter out. So, you know, how should I market myself? So I also help people with that, you know, so it's not just about microblading. How are you going to put yourself out there? How are you, now that there's so much competition out there, how are you going to make yourself different? How are you still going to, you know, have people come to you instead of going down the street when they're charging a little bit less? You know, so I really go into depth, and wherever you go, be sure that they're giving an extended training, and also make sure that they're giving you, you know, more bang for your buck for the most part.
Great. Well, I think, you know, we're about out of time. We went a little bit over, but we had some really great questions. So thank you everyone for joining us today. We're done already, but we're going to continue this conversation in a week or two. You know, we'll figure out our schedules and go a little bit more in depth on the business side of microblading.
Because there's a lot to go in depth about from the business end.
Right. So. And this is, I mean, this was microblading one-on-one. It was just a quick informational session for you to learn a little bit more about microblading, how it might suit your lifestyle or the lifestyle of your customers, and how you can incorporate it into your business.
Correct.
My one last question, Chris, is microblading a trend, or is it here to stay?
I really do think it's here to stay. You know, I think back of, you know, when people were, you know, first started doing eyelash extensions, and we all thought that was a trend, you know, and here it is 10 years later, it's bigger than ever. Eyelash extensions are growing, you know, that business is growing like 12% a year to this day, 10 years afterwards. So I think as long as it doesn't get too messy, you know, with people who don't know what they're doing, because this is a little more serious than eyelash extensions, although you are dealing with the eyes. I mean, people can really screw the eyes up as well. I don't think it's a trend. I really don't. If I did, I wouldn't be in it. You know, I don't want to, you know, invest all this time and energy and money into something that's going to be gone in 2 years. You know, this is my life right now. This is what I'm doing, and I don't want to do anything else. So I definitely think it's here to stay. I just think we need to figure out, okay, how can we adjust? How can we change? How can we do what's new, whether it's with a new instrument, a new tool, new color, new shape, you know, all of that. It's about relearning things and keeping your education going. But it's not a trend. So let's all make some money out of it.
It's a worthwhile investment.
It absolutely is.
Thanks, Chris.
Absolutely.
Thanks for taking some time out of your busy day. And thanks everyone for joining us here live in the SpaHive. And a recording will be available both on the SpaHive YouTube and on Chris's as well. Thanks.
Yes.
Have a great day.
I'm going to put it on my YouTube.